Welcome to the first After Party podcast interview that you heard on our last podcast. We mentioned the big interview we had. We just watched the Dear Mama documentary on Tupac on Hulu. Go watch it if you haven't. Amazing documentary. So following on that, we landed our first interview, big one with Mutah, a.k.a. Napoleon from the Outlawz. So take a look, enjoy, hit like, hit subscribe so we can keep getting big interviews like this for you guys. All right, so I'd say first off, thanks for joining us here today, giving us some of your time. First want to give you the opportunity, Mutah, to introduce yourself, and maybe just tell a little about yourself, and then how you became knowing with Tupac and getting to the Outlawz and going from there in your story. That'd be great to kind of have that background first.
For sure, thank you, man. Appreciate it, man. So, thanks for having me on your show. It's my pleasure to be with you guys. You guys on the West Coast, Seattle. I'm out here in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. For those who don't know, my name is Mutah Bill. I was actually one of the members of the Outlawz. First we started off as Young Thugs. Then Pac changed our name to Dramacidal, then Outlaw Immortals, and we ended up as Outlawz. And I was known as Napoleon from the Outlawz.
Nice. So, what about how old were you when you started joining the group?
I started rapping at a very young age, growing up in New Jersey, Irvington, New Jersey, Newark, New Jersey. I would say I probably started writing about 11 years old, give or take.
Oh, wow.
And I met Pac a few years later. I was around, I believe between 13, 14 years old. Let's say 14 years old, I would say, when I first met Pac through Gaddafi, which is considered his brother, and Gaddafi was a friend of mine's. So I got introduced to Pac, about 14 years old, give or take, you know what I mean, when he came to New York, and eventually he put together this group. At the beginning it was just myself, it was Edie, it was Castro, and it was Gaddafi, but our names was different. I was Little Moo. Castro was K-Dog, Edie was Big Mouth, and Gaddafi at that time was Young Hollywood. And we was called Young Thugs, yes.
Young Thugs, yeah. Nice. And then just real quick, just for background, did you get to watch any of the documentary at all, or yet, or any of that?
I definitely checked out, thanks for sending me the links to the documentary. It was, I didn't expect it to be what it was. It's very touching, it was emotional for me. From what I seen of it, I didn't get to see all of the clips you've seen. I think I went through at least 4 series, if I'm not mistaken, 3 or 4 series. But I think, from the outside looking in, at first I was hesitant to watch the documentary series, Dear Mama, because of, I just felt some reservation to deal with it due to the fact that, Pac didn't really get along with the Hughes brothers. So I always felt like, if a person have some animosity against you, because myself seeing the Hughes brothers interviews throughout the years, they always was, speaking, and they have every right to. If for example, if Pac and his homies jumped him, he have every right to feel the way he feel about Pac. So it was always, he always let it known how he felt about Pac, you know what I mean? And it wasn't always in a good way. So when I heard he was doing a documentary, I was surprised. I think they initially agreed to do that documentary when Pac's mother was alive. That's why you still have a lot of recording from her. You hear her voice. And a lot of people have to understand his mother's a type of woman that, anything that Pac done in the past, she as a mother was trying to clean it up for him since Pac wasn't around to do it. So I think the reason why she allowed the Hughes brothers to do it, or Allen Hughes to do it, because of the fact that Pac did get into an altercation with him and things like that. She was trying to, I guess, pay him back. But I was always worried because I felt like he always had something against Pac. So how do he get the right to tell a story? I felt like he would be biased,
Yep. I think that's also one of the things when you saw like the preview of the documentary coming out, you saw a lot of people release like videos and a lot of people like close, like you were close to Pac, coming out saying like they're a little bit hesitant because of, like you said, Alan doing the documentary and the brothers and what happened there, right?
True.
So, were you there when that incident happened?
I wasn't there when the incident happened. I think it probably was the time I didn't know Pac at that particular time or just met him. I heard about it, of course, and I heard him mention about it
Yep.
many times. You know what I mean? But I
Yeah.
wasn't there at that particular time. It's an unfortunate situation, of course, that
Yep.
it happened the way it happened. So even if Allen Hughes doesn't, agree with Pac and have some bad taste in his mouth, he have every right to do so. But I wouldn't let that person, I wouldn't let nobody that I beat up or me and my friends jump do my documentary
Yeah.
unless we made amends. You know what I mean? But
Yep.
to go separate ways on that, I wouldn't trust it.
Yeah, exactly. I think just going outside in, like, for like us, like not knowing like the background of the director and what would Pac, and just going in, I think just kind of more, I guess, outside looking in.
Yes.
I thought the documentary was very beautifully done, and like you said, it really, I thought, showcased Tupac in his a really good light, which I always thought was in a really good light, and I just thought
Yes.
that it really connected, especially the Feeney part of it and him growing up, and kind of how he became who he was. And I think for all of us, we really thought that was like a pretty inspiring, and just like really, like, we think everybody should kind of watch that part
No,
of it.
I kind of
We thought
actually watching it, I was surprised. You know what I mean? Because I seen
right.
like some interviews, like Pac father was saying that he before I watched the documentary, I was seeing negative comments about the documentary. So I went in there thinking that did the Hughes brother purposely try to do these things? But when I actually watched it, it seemed like he wasn't really trying to paint Pac in a negative light. I think he might have mentioned something that he had bipolar, or he thought he had, like Pac had bipolar, or whatever. You know what I mean?
I was gonna bring that question up.
Yeah,
but I'd see.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. No, I was actually gonna bring that in because I think, Tupac's father, Billy Garland, I think he did an interview with the Art of Dialogue. Shout out to those guys, right?
Yeah, shout out
So,
to Art of
he did
Dialogue.
an interview with them afterwards, and I think he felt a certain way about a question like that. Like, there was two Tupacs, and he asked, Tupac's aunt about it, right? And she said no, right?
Yeah.
About bipolar or any other
Yeah,
disorders.
and
But
like
I
what
think,
Glow said,
he took it.
shout out to Glow. Glow is the mother of Castro,
Yep,
and
yep,
Glow took care of
yep.
me, took care of my little brother. I remember Glow, for example, when my little brother moved to Atlanta. First he moved to LA with us, and then when he moved to Atlanta, man, she was treating him like that was her own child, picking him up taking him to school and picking him up. Very good people. So shout out to Glow, and I seen her answer when she was, and it makes sense that Pac was like, he was young, first of all, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And every young kid, you know what I mean, and living in America, and especially the way we was raised in America, and what Pac was going through, for example. Of course, you're gonna have days where you happy, like she said, days where you sad, days. This is life in general. Everybody cannot be happy one day. I mean, every single day, and or sad every single day. You have turns. So so a person was able to see that about with Pac because he had all the cameras on him. You know what I mean? He didn't really have no privacy when he was going through his emotions or what he was facing. He would come out to one day you see him doing songs like "Keep Your Head Up." The next you might see him doing a song degrading women in some of his raps and things like that because that was his reality. You know what I mean? But to say he was bipolar, nah, that was definitely stretching it.
So in the documentary Dear Mama, they did a really good job of showing like the real rawness of Tupac's upbringing and seeing these extreme highs as well as these extreme lows. So first off, thank you for being willing to talk about both of those. But curious, do you look back on that time with fondness and love or with pain and grief?
Thanks for having me. You know what I mean? It's my pleasure. But definitely, I look back at it, and every, according to every emotion you just mentioned, pain, grief, fondness, love, because it was a roller coaster. You know what I mean? And we was like family. It wasn't like we was just a normal rap group. Half of the members of the Outlawz was either blood related to Pac or they was related to him through like the Black Panther Party and that movement. And the rest of us was either brought together in the Outlawz through one of the people that was related to Pac. So we was like a family. So, the only thing that I do miss about the music industry is the camaraderie we had, that family feel, because we was different. We lived with Pac. We woke up in the morning with him. We drove around with him. We stayed in the same house with him, and we ate together, traveled together. So it was more like family. You know what I mean? But you know, we did have some days that, you know, and that's life in general. A person cannot be happy every single day. A person will not be sad every single day. People get their turns. You know what I mean? So we just was dealing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that was really common throughout, or one theme that was common throughout the entire documentary was this concept of betrayal, whether it was Pac feeling betrayed by his own kind, or Afeni, the undercover cops betraying that, you know, were Black Panthers and whatnot. How did you, like, what did that feel like? Did you get a sense of that betrayal, and how damaging was that to you and Pac and the whole group? Like, because you guys are family, right? So to feel that when you, it's your family like that, it's got to feel so painful.
So basically, you know what I mean? I faced betrayal since a kid. You know, I was 3 years old when my mother and father got murdered in front of me by my so-called godfather. You know, one of my father's best friends. So, you know, growing up in that environment, you almost prepared to be for betrayal. You know what I mean? So coming in the music industry, a lot of us really come from the streets. You got a lot of rappers who are actors, and then you have some that really come from the streets. So we usually bring that street element. So what comes from the streets to the music industry will be cutthroat, will be betrayal, because the streets is the same. You know what I mean? It's cutthroat. You know what I mean? You're gonna face betrayal. Your best friend will blow your head off when you turn your back on them. It's nothing nice from the streets, and that's why, you know, I try my best to show these youngsters the reality that you want to stay away from that. You understand? And get your education and be the furthest away from this type of activity. So, you know, so Pac, it hurt him when he got shot by Black people, because he said it. I remember he said it to us after he got shot, that he would never expect it to be shot by Black people, because he thought that he was for his people. He felt he was for his people. He was like, man, my music, my poetry, my songs were for Black people. You know, I was trying to rap to be able to tell our Black people to get them out of the struggle and stuff like that. So it definitely hurt him.
Man.
Yeah. So I think, especially starting out with that documentary, they start off pretty quick going into, you know, with Afeni and her being in the Black Panther party. Did you see that really? Like you mentioned, a lot of people in your guys' group were maybe part of the Black Panthers or were related in some way like that. So did you see that in like his everyday life, like some kind of like influence from those days, you know, during your time with him?
I think Pac message, he wanted to be able to, he was trying to uplift the Black and the brown community and people in general. You know what I mean? He tried his best to put a positive message out. You understand? Like, a lot of people don't realize that the Black Panther Party, because it's called Black Panther Parties, or Black, the word Black is used. A lot of people thought that the Black Panther Party was a racist organization. But as you've seen in the documentary, that, you know, it wasn't based on being racism, because you had people from Japan that was in the Black Panther Party. They used to go to China. I think Mutah himself went to China to learn acupuncture, to come to get, you know, the people that was addicted to drugs off of drugs that way for free. They had breakfast programs. They had white people in the Black Panther Party. You know what I mean? So that mindset of the group of people from different ethnicities, they were all trying to bring together some peace and some positivity in the neighborhood. The Black Panther Party, for example, was against drug dealing. You know what I mean? They was against Black people selling drugs to other Black people, or selling drugs in general. They was against pushing poison in our community. So Pop tried to take that element of what he learned from the Black Panther Party. He figured a way to reach the new generation was through his music. You know what I mean? So I think that it definitely, we don't see that now. I think rap took, you understand, I think rap is promoting more murder, more killing amongst Black people. I think rap, and a lot of people might not understand me, or a lot of people might not agree with me, but I think rap music nowadays is part of the reason of what we facing in the community of Black people, young Black and Latino people murdering each other. You know what I mean? Nobody is taking accountability for that. I can say in our time when we talked about these type of things, you know, we made our mistakes. We wasn't perfect. You know, I can look back at a lot of things I don't agree with what we said, but I can say that we definitely try to have a message that we wasn't really trying to push Black on Black crime or crime in general. We wasn't really trying to push senseless violence. You know what I mean? Our time was basically saying this is what we see in our community. maybe this is how we can fix it. That's why we have songs like Letter to the President, for example. Nowadays, they pushing the gun culture in rap music.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A lot of these youngsters that's killing each other is because of the rap music hyping them up. And there's no accountability. Like, for example, you don't see the people behind the music industry, these billion-dollar corporations that's making billions of dollars of rap music, coming back to the communities and saying, how can we fix this? You understand? You would never find a rap record label. I don't know if you ever heard that they even paid for the funeral of a rap artist that died that was once signed to them, let alone come back to the community and open up some things in the neighborhood to try to stop the violence. So I think, you know what I mean, on one hand, you got these corporations that's pushing these youngsters to do it, and on the other hand, these youngsters are making money off of this, and nobody's being accountable for it. So I think that it have to be a discussion that, it have to be talked about.
Yeah, I think that goes back to so what do you think? So in your, I guess your best words, I know you can't put it out what exactly his message was because you never want to put like words in his mouth. But from your point of view, just being around him and everything he's done, what do you think Tupac's main message in his work was? And do you think that it is out there now and being lived to right now and lived out, or where do you think it's at?
Definitely I don't see his message being, even though to be clear, because of my religion, I don't listen to music anymore, but I do know what's going on. You understand? Like, and I don't think we have anyone, for example, when we came up in the hood, you know what I mean, as a Black American, Latin American person that half Black, half Latino, our culture, we wasn't really raised to show what can I say, just a side of love, you understand, to our mothers, for example. Pac was the first one that came from the hood that was doing so-called gangster music, as they say, but then doing a song called Dear Mama. Let's leave all the musical side of it, the lyrics, for example. You understand? The lyrics, for example, was telling you how to respect your mother, like saying things about that. That was unheard of. No one did it before him. No one really did it after, in my opinion. So we don't see that anymore. You know what I mean? We don't see that positive side anymore. We don't see the people saying, okay, you know what I mean? So I think it definitely took a left turn.
Yeah, I just want to kind of piggyback off your question, Roger. That was a little bit about like his message and whatnot. And in the documentary, it mentioned Tupac really believed that like Fred Hampton, Harriet Tubman were people that were laying the groundwork or laying the tracks for himself to be able to go on and continue that message.
Yes.
With everything that happened, do you think Tupac's message is continuing? Like, who took the torch and who's running with it? As you mentioned, rap music nowadays, it's kind of going the exact opposite of, pushing the gun culture in it. Do you see his message still being kind of carried on, or who did he lay the tracks for?
Yeah, I think the thing that Pac had that was different, because he was young, for a youngster to have that, to show every emotion of him. As a Black person growing up in America, as a young Black male, we was really taught, maybe it's a protection mechanism, but we didn't really show certain emotions. We only showed one side of us, and that was a tough side. But deep down, it's a reason why we got to be tough. Because, for example, growing up in the ghetto, you show that side of you, like that Dear Mama side of you on the streets, you would get ate alive. You know what I mean? So we always had this macho, brave side of us as a protection. Pac he wasn't afraid to remove that wall and show, look, no, it's okay to tell girls to keep your head up. It's okay to, to want good for your mother. It's okay to say stop killing, your peoples and stuff like that, and you know what I mean. And so that was one side that we seen from him, that we was able to say, wait a minute, okay, you can be from the hood and be accepted and still be able to have this, this positive message. Don't get me wrong, as a Muslim now, I look back at these things and some of the things we said probably wasn't so good, wasn't so positive, you know what I mean? But that's our life, you know what I mean? I might not agree with it now, but that was our reality then. As far as work ethics, I never seen any, when I had to realize how Pac work ethics was when he passed away. It was the first time I realized that it was abnormal. It was a hard-working individual, because when you around him and he doing 5-6 songs a day, we thinking that's normal. We thinking people in the next studio with Snoop Dogg and them doing the same thing. But when he passed away and we started working with other artists, and sometimes it would take like 2-3 days to do one song, And then we went to Rap A Lot Records, and we around these people, and we seeing this. We like, wait a minute, we here doing 3 songs a day, and these rappers are selling millions of records, and they can't even do 1 song in 2 days. So we realized that Pac had a work ethics that he even installed in us that was unheard of, pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. And I think piggybacking off that question, that answer you just gave was just not seeing anybody do that anymore. I think that speaks towards just like say who Tupac was, just as in being more of just a genius in many forms, right? He was really, his first love, I think he said, it was acting, right? He always liked acting, right? But he could write poetry, he could rap, right? He knew all the music stuff, and at the same time, you saw him at some of the political rallies, right? Him speaking there, right? The way he could speak, and he could command it like a audience, right? And really gather people going. It's just like it was just very unique, and I feel like people that have greatness like that, like you look at them, they just have that it about them, right? They have something it about it, like an it factor about them, right? What do you think that it factor was about Pac, that it drew people to him? And what was his, also just in general, what was his work ethic like in the booth, right? That's what I'm kind of curious too. Like how he, like you mentioned, he wrote Dear Mama, which was like never heard of at that time, and people were like just like rocking with it, right? Like how did he go about making music like that and turning like these songs that could be like poetry into like raps, right?
Straight to the studio. Yeah, and you gotta understand, like when I look back at it now, and I think that we lived this way because he probably saved us from a lot of trouble. We wasn't always in the nightclubs. We wasn't always popping bottles. Like as an outlaw, as a young teenager, I used to think Pac life was boring because we want to have fun. We come from Jersey, we in California. A lot of people don't know, bro, the way Pac, he was so protective over us that we literally used to wait till he go to sleep and sneak out of his house to go hang out. Because he used to tell us, man, y'all got to be careful. Y'all in LA, these girls will set you up, and we used to be like, man, this guy crazy. He go to sleep, we leave. But he rather be in a studio instead of a nightclub. You know what I mean? And that's how it was for us. So majority of that 11 months on death row for us, it was boring. Like, man, a studio again? Like, come on, bro. Can we? You know what I mean? But it kept us out of trouble.
Yeah,
It kept
I
us out
think
of
they
trouble.
mentioned. Yeah, I think it mentioned in the documentary or something where he said they showed him like, "Hey, I'm gonna be in the studio at 7. Make sure the Outlawz are there at 10. Like make sure they like tell you guys to get in the studio right
Yeah, he
after
used
him
to
because
make sure.
like you said, he was
Yeah, he used to
work
make
work
sure
work.
we was there early,
So
bro. Like, and I used to be mad. Like, sometimes he'd wake us up, and now that I look back at it, I know he was just trying to install work ethics with us. Like, he used to have to be on a movie set like 6 a.m., 5 a.m. And he used to
yeah,
make us go with him. I guess he was like, "You guys ain't gonna be sleeping in my house while I'm working. Like, y'all gonna get out." And we used to have to
yeah,
just sit in his trailer. Like, he wake us up, and I remember being mad. Like, bro, why would this dude waking us up 5 a.m. to go in a movie? We have nothing to do with this movie, and we just sitting in the trailer. But he was installing into us worth ethics. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Wow.
So, can you give us a little bit of vaccine, kind of like in your downtime with Pac, like outside of music, like how was he like talking to you? Was it more of like a older brother, younger brother? Like what kind of advice did he give, or how was it, like what was he interested in talking outside of music and
It,
stuff like that with
definitely.
you
He
guys?
he was very family orientated. So I say outside of music, he always wanted to be with his family, his mother. He used to fly his mother and his aunt Glow into LA a lot. His cousin Jamala, his sister Setra. So he was very family orientated. He always wanted his family around the house. So if he wasn't in the studio, pretty much he was just around family. And he definitely had that. He
Nice,
definitely
nice.
had
And
that
then
big brother when he was trying to, lace us with game. Like a big. Now I look back at it, you know what I mean. As a kid, a teenager, I didn't really understand it. Why he was keeping us away from this? Why he keeping us away from this? Why he don't want to go to the club? But all of this was his protection, his way of trying to show us, to be young, he was a very mature individual. You know what I mean. His mindset was very mature. And I look back at it and I'm like, man, I'm 45 years old and Pac was 23, 22, 24. He was telling us these things, you know what I mean? And now I can appreciate it even more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. I think that's one thing the documentary highlighted really well was just the stuff he accomplished and what he was going towards
Yes.
doing, and then also making people remember at the end, like he was only 20, like five,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like, and then all of us now being close to our 40s now, like thinking like, whoa, like the stuff he did and how old, how young
I think
he was
I just
at the
got
time,
mature, man. I'm
and
45 years old. I think I just got mature last year, bro.
yeah. So during that like that death row, that 11 months with him, and like like that work grind, he seemed like he was always on the go. He wanted to get stuff accomplished, and he needed to get stuff accomplished. And a lot of stuff with his music kind of relayed to like I might not be around, or there's a couple things talking about did did he think he was something was going to happen to him? I know a lot of people always ask that question probably,
Yes.
but you being with him, like what gave him that drive to get stuff done was and
it talked a lot about he had like this urgency, and like he had it,
Yeah.
so he needed to do everything. So did he know something was coming on? They talked a bit about paranoia with him a little bit as well after, I think, the
incidents,
after he got shot and after he got beat by the police.
Definitely.
Which
These things are changed with being
sense,
beat by the police, getting shot. You definitely gonna be, paranoid. Your mindset you're gonna go through some PTSD. And growing up in our hood, we didn't really know what PTSD was. We just thought like it happened, you deal with it. Growing up in the hood, but I think Pac, it's hard to say. I don't know if people can get some type of understanding, or they can feel if they their time is about to be up. We don't know that. That's something that I can't say. But I do remember a week before Pac died, he came to us and he was like, you know what? We don't really have pictures. He sent someone to the store. I remember they went to the Ralphs in Los Angeles and got the portable cameras. The cameras you can take and just throw away. You know what I mean? And he was like, let's just take pictures together. We don't really have a lot of pictures together. And we went a week just taking pictures, and a week later he was gone.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, that's crazy. Wow. So, like, I guess that's some other just questions going through the documentary. I know, so kind of lining up with. Do you want to do a question first?
I have a few, but go ahead.
You go first.
I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of what you mentioned earlier. What I kind of grasped onto was he had such like this duality about him, where he could be like the super masculine thug life guy protecting his own, but also super in touch with his feminine side. They called him the Marvin Gaye of rap. I don't know if there's a question about this. I just would love to know like your opinion of that, because you don't see that ever. And he did so good at like kind of walking both sides.
And also, like, nobody could pull it off like
nobody could pull it off. I'm curious.
I don't really like to say feminine side, because I think a man is a man and a woman is a woman. You know what I mean? I know we're going through all of this type of thing, but I think Pac, what he did have is that he was raised by a woman. You understand? So sometimes when kids are raised by a woman, he might have some, what can I say? Just some mannerisms that he might have seen his mother do, like the way he, you know what I mean? Like I remember I seen him do certain things, and I see his mother do the same thing, and I'd be like, wow, but because he was raised, a kid usually, they implement, or they really do what they see their parents doing. You know what I mean? So especially if a kid is raised pretty much his whole life by his mother only, and in the house also his sister in the house with him. So I think Pac might have had some of these mannerisms that he's seen from them, you know what I mean? But I won't say in touch with his feminine side, because it definitely wasn't, in my opinion, nothing feminine about him. You know what I mean? He was definitely masculine. But I do know where you're coming from, because I do understand what they say in America. But now with what we're going through with all these things, you know what I mean? We got to keep it we got to keep it clear. But I definitely think he being raised by a mother, you know what I mean? Sometimes you pick up habits, or you pick up certain things that you see your mother, because he had a lot of ways like his mother, definitely. Even his mindset, a lot of people might not know, but that the whole characteristic of Pac, you know what I mean, from everything, from his, you can say his warrior side, you can say his militant side that he had, because he was very militant and he was trying to push that on us. All of that came from his mother, and she got that from the Black Panther Party, the structure, the mindset, you know what I mean, to be militant, to be like, like you see interviews with, Reggie Wright, and also Snoop mentioned how Pac used to try to be on some militant thing, telling Snoop, you only talk to me. The Outlawz, the Dog Pound, don't talk to you, don't talk. We gonna keep it like in order and stuff like that. We the generals, he had that mindset, but all of that is what he got from his mother.
All right, I think just going back then to, I guess going back to before he got, the stuff that happened at Quad studios, right? Like let's go back to the stuff like with Haitian Jack, just in general. Were you ever around this Haitian Jack guy? Do you kind of know how he was? I know too. I think they said like Tupac was around him and kind of got maybe some for acting abilities, right? Well, for his Birdie character, I think from Above the Rim, they said that he kind of mirrored Haitian Jack a little bit. Do you find that true, or do you remember
He
them
kind of did what?
connected?
Sorry for that. He did what with Haitian Jack?
Oh no! So I was just curious about just the Haitian Jack connection with Tupac. I know, like during Above the Rim or before Above the Rim, like he was hanging out with Haitian Jack. They were saying, and he kind of got some of inspiration for his character Birdie, or for his character on Above the Rim, from Haitian Jack. Do you feel that's true? Do you remember them kind of getting close before that movie?
I know he definitely was hanging around. I don't know him personally. I wasn't around when he ever hung around. Some of the Outlawz met him and stuff. You know what I mean? I had one run-in with Haitian Jack, and that was years after Pac died, and we was in Las Vegas. My brother, my cousin, bunch of us from Jersey, a few LA dudes, and we approached him. Really, my brother was like, "Man, that's Haitian Jack. Let's go approach him." My brother was really like, "Man, you got a problem with my brother here?" And Haitian Jack was like, "I don't even know who is your brother." He said, "He from the Outlawz." And that's when I was like, "So what's going on with Pac, man? Word on the street, you had something to do with it." He's like, "I never had anything to do with it." And the crazy part is that now with all what's happening with it does show that he never put the hit out on Pac.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You know what I mean? It was really the people that was involved trying to say it was more of Jimmy Henchman. They, you know what I mean? So Haitian Jack probably was right all along when he said, "I never, you know what I mean, told anyone to do nothing to Pac." But I don't really know his character to say Pac was trying to, get that character and stuff like that.
I guess
I'm from Jersey, bro. So where we from, everybody is a Haitian Jack. Everybody is a gang. Like so nobody really stick out to us. When you come from where I come from in Jersey, Irvington and North New Jersey, it wasn't really that one person because we come from a neighborhood. There's always somebody more crazier, bro. So that's how we had to move.
So just going back with like you were talking about the hit and stuff at Quad Studios. Did you hear Art of Dialogue's interview like with Gene, like Puff Daddy's bodyguard, and kind of the things he mentioned that like Diddy was up there, so was I think it was Andre Harrell. He said they were there with Henchman, right? It was Jimmy Henchman, right? And then that they weren't those two weren't behind it, but they knew what was going on, but they didn't say anything.
Yeah, I believe that. I definitely believe they knew what was happening. I definitely believe that it was a lot of hitting hands involved. It wasn't no coincidence. It wasn't a robbery. You know what I mean? Like a botched robbery. I believe it was they was there purposely. They were sent, and even some of the people that done it now are saying who sent them and stuff like that. So, it's crazy. It definitely was crazy, and I believe it was over. Like they said, Pac was arguing with one of Jimmy Henchman artists and cursing Jimmy Henchman out and stuff like that, and they, you know what I mean, and they felt like they wanted to do something. So it definitely was. I don't think they came there to just. They might have came there just to rob him. But when Pac tried to pull out the gun, because one of the dudes who was there was Zayd. Zayd was also like he grew up in the Black Panther Party. He's the first, his Setua, which is Pac's sister, first child is by Zayd. Zayd said that, you know what I mean, when Pac tried to pull out that gun, that's when everything started going left and going, south, and that's when the shootings and start, ranged out.
Got it. All right. And then I guess just going down that line. I guess did you? So was there? So I also heard rumors about one thing that some of the people on the East Coast didn't like was kind of hearing that there was a death row East Coast that was going to be set up. I think even the Gene mentioned in the thing that there was a meeting out there with Suge. I think they invited even Diddy out there, but Diddy didn't attend. I think there was rumors about Death Row East going after was it Craig Mack, one of Diddy's old first performers, and I think that might also caused a little bit more ruffling of the feathers between the two groups there. Do you know if any of that was true, or if there's anything to?
Yeah, definitely. There is definitely. Oh, sorry.
No, just was anything true there?
Now they definitely was going to do the Death Row East. They definitely was going to do the Death Row East. Eric B, I believe, was going to be the main one running and operating it. Pac, they was trying to get Craig Mack. That's true. I remember Pac. A lot of people. I don't know if the guys remember that singer Alanis Morissette.
Wow.
Alanis Morissette was like Pac was gonna sign
Whoa.
her. She was about to sign to Death Row East. They was trying to get Run DMC. Like a lot of people don't know that they was trying to really, you know what I mean? Because Pac used to listen to like weird music like Alanis Morissette and stuff like that. We used to be like, who's Alanis Morissette? He used to hang out with her. And then one day he was going to hang out with her, but when she told him not to bring the Outlawz, like, please don't bring your crew, he got upset. And that's when he stopped really dealing with her, like chilling with her. But he wanted to sign her to Death Row East.
Wow.
And I think one of the reasons they wanted to do Death Row East, because they wanted to show that it wasn't an East Coast, West Coast beef.
Yeah.
You know, Pac wanted to show that he had a lot of love for people on the East Coast and that he was originally from the East Coast. And Suge was even backing him with this idea, like, okay, let's do it. So he definitely was about to do the Death Row East.
I think there's so one thing I did want to also bring up and have you clarify a little bit was because for me, just watching the documentary, then I started watching your interviews with Art of Dialogue, right? And then putting that together with the documentary, and I thought it painted a very clear picture. So if anybody's watched the documentary and watched Art of Dialogue with Mutah here, it's very very helpful, I think. So, but so one thing like in the documentary, it kind of goes about the Quad City, Quad Studios. They talk about Diddy, and it kind of alludes to the Bad Boy East Coast rival. And then Tupac was mad about them thinking that they'd maybe shot him or whatever like that. But I think you mentioned it wasn't really about them pulling the trigger and stuff. It was more Tupac was more like, you guys are the king of the East Coast, right? You're supposed to give me a heads up or at least tell me what happened and that kind of stuff, because he would do that for people coming to the East Coast to the West Coast. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think that's probably that. I think that was his really beef with Biggie. And I think the misunderstanding of who shot you when they released that. You know what I mean? I truly believe that they did that way before Pac got shot, and I believe people like Puffy released it purposely to take advantage of what happened with Pac. You understand? And I truly don't believe Biggie had anything to do with Pac being set up or Pac being shot. I don't think that. And I think Pac didn't really believe that either. But Pac believed that, like you said, if you the king of New York, you know these individuals. Because, Pac probably, the picture wasn't clear. Like Puffy, it was seeming very clear that Puffy had some hands to deal with it. Like you said, he was close with these people, Andre Harrell and these individuals. So Pac looking at it like Biggie is Puffy artist. And you guys know these people on the streets. And you probably knew coming to the studio that they was going to do this. Maybe Pac thought that Puffy told Biggie. You know what I mean? Like, and Puffy knew him. Maybe Puffy never told Biggie. Puffy probably was saying that Biggie is Pac homie. Let me keep it away from him. So I believe that's what happened. I don't believe, you know what I mean? I definitely don't believe Biggie had anything to do with it. But Pac was saying, okay, since you're the king of New York, now the king should know what's happening, in his environment. You know what I mean? So that's why Pac was.
So I do have another just follow up just between onto that one. So he gets out. I think it was in October, right, from prison. Then he goes on that 11-month stretch, and then Hit 'Em Up comes out in I think June, right? The big track, right? So my question is, I know he had stuff before going to jail, saying about what happened at Quad Studios, but what made him release Hit 'Em Up in June and start going kind of more towards Bad Boy in June, right? Like he had a couple months there where he was really focused on his work, and he was I think still acting, and he was going to like I think SNL and in Living Color and all those kind of stuff, and he's getting stuff done. But then like in June, it seems like it kind of hit. Was there? My question is, was there a trigger for that?
He turned it up. I think the reason why, if I'm not mistaken, you know what I mean, but I do believe that we had a song that Faith heard, and she went back and told him, you know what I mean, that we had a song, a beat and everything, and Biggie, it might have been the Get Money, Biggie and them song Get Money. I believe we initially had that beat. And she must have went back and told him, and I don't know if that was for the first Hit 'Em Up or whatever, but I believe we had a song on that. And she was in the studio, must have went back and told him, and they just came out with that beat and released it. So when Pac did the Hit 'Em Up, that's why he was doing Take Money instead of Make Money. And but I don't recall him ever, since he came home, to be honest, bro, he haven't stopped. He been doing just diss tracks, records. I guess, for political reasons or maybe from the artist standpoint of view, they haven't released them. But it's not like Hit 'Em Up, he just came and did Hit 'Em Up out of the blue. We did a previous Hit 'Em Up, you know what I mean, before that. So he was always doing these diss records nonstop. If I recall, like it was definitely from the time he landed, he was doing other records, but the diss records wasn't nothing new. It didn't start with Hit 'Em Up. He just happened to release that Hit 'Em Up.
Right. Do you think just in general that
Yeah.
So there's a story that Biggie was trying to leave Diddy at one point, and then Pac actually told him that to stay with Diddy. Do you know anything about that or any background on that?
I heard something. I heard something. I forgot who said it in an interview, but that do sound like something Pac would say. You know, he definitely was. He definitely was like a team player like that. So I think I can see him telling Biggie to stay with Puffy. Cause Pac was the type of individual, man. When
Yeah.
he's with you, he's with you. Like he's with you. Like he was the one bringing Biggie out on stage before Biggie got released and saying this is the next hottest artist. He was showing that love. That's how Pac is. Like he gonna show love. He gonna if he with you, he's all in. But if he's against you, he's all he's all out. You know what I mean? He's gonna go all out. So that was his type of characteristic. So I can see him being there for Biggie and say no. Like he truly wanted good for anybody that he had love with. He will always try to give him good advice. So it definitely sounds like something he would tell Biggie. Don't leave Puffy. Stay with him. That was his characteristic. Cause Pac, like I said, he's a loyal individual. And to default, we pretty much led up to what happened to him, to his demise. You know what I mean? All of that was out of loyalty.
I'm really curious about when Pac was in jail. The documentary kind of alluded to he was going to go more of like a political route almost, but then she connected with Suge, and it kind of alluded to Suge kind of got him out. They worked really hard. They dropped the album, and at the end of it, it talked a little bit too about how the homes that they thought and the things that they thought Tupac owns, he didn't, and how that kind of put Athenian Glow out and whatnot. I'm curious, like, what was that agreement between Pac and Suge in terms of like, was it just one album? Was it additional work? Was Suge not wanting?
I don't know, definitely. You know what I mean? You hear a lot of people saying that Pop was gonna leave Death Row. We live with him. I never heard him say he was gonna leave Death Row. I just like to keep it real. I think sometimes the people emotions, because they might not like what some of the business dealings that Death Row had, like you mentioned, all the Pop cars and homes was in Death Row name. Maybe Pop didn't know that. You understand? So because they had these bad business dealings, doesn't mean it's true that he was gonna leave Death Row. Because he had arguments with him, he had things like that, but he literally told us, he came to us not too long before he passed away. He's like, Suge want to sign y'all to Death Row, but I told him no, because I'm going to sign y'all through Machiavelli Records, or it was either Euthanasia Records or Machiavelli Records, I forget. He said, so I'm going to sign y'all through my record label through Death Row. I'm going to come up with my own record label through Death Row. You know what I mean? So me hearing that myself, that means he was ready to stay on Death Row. So when you hear people, you always hear people saying he was going to leave Death Row, but where's the proof? You understand? And I'm just saying, where's the proof of that? You understand? He argued. I don't know his contract, how many albums he had, but I definitely knew, and I heard him myself saying that he's going to have a distribution record company through Death Row Records. You understand? So I think, it was shocking to find out that these things wasn't in his name. And I think Pac probably, from that standpoint of view, he was he loved to work. He wasn't on top of his business. So I believe that's probably why he didn't know these things. Or I don't know if he knew them, but I doubt that he would, think that these things was his and not in his name. But at the end of the day, I never seen anything from him that say he was going to leave Death Row. And you have to realize Pac was on Death Row for 11 months. In the music industry, you don't really get your first recoupment back from the record labels until 1 year later. If I'm not mistaken. I've been so far away from it, but if you releasing albums and it haven't even been a year since your album released, how do you receive your royalties?
That makes sense too, because
so Death Row Records also have a claim to about the money that they spent on them. People try to say he got the money from Interscope. We don't know where Suge got the money, but we do know Suge is the one that bailed him out with $1 million. You understand? We do know when Pac was in prison, Interscope kind of turned their back on him. You understand? So that's kind of hard to believe that now they will put up $1 million to get him out. We do know that Suge was paying, you know what I mean, giving him the money for certain things, bought the house cash, for his mother in Atlanta. So these things, you got to look at both sides, you know what I mean? You got to look at both sides of what happened. And you don't really recoup money until a 1 year after.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you talk about how loyal Pac was, and in the documentary it says at the very end that he was covering Suge, so he was protecting Suge Knight at the very end from getting hit. So kind of in the documentary.
Who said that?
I think it was.
Yeah, who said it?
No,
in the
it was
documentary?
it was Ed Love. Right, I think it was him.
Yeah, I think it was the
But
final
was Ed
episode.
Lover
Final
there?
episode.
They talked about that.
That's why I said, like, people, the only people that really know was Pac and
Well,
Suge.
he
what
he
really
didn't say that.
happened in that car, you know what I
To
mean?
be clear, what he was
Or the
saying is he went
Outlaws.
to the story about how I love at the end of his days he was trying to protect Afeni. That was his job, kind of go out with Afeni. And then one time Afeni kind of moved in front of him. And he's like, "Hey, you need to come back. I need to protect you." And she's like, "No, I'm here to protect you." And then he's like, "That's the kind of people."
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
right.
part. Yeah, of course he gonna protect his
Oh
mother,
no,
but
no,
I
no.
don't think if guns start shooting,
Yeah.
he gonna say, "Let me protect Suge." I think everybody's going like, and when I've been in situations when people
Yeah.
like start shooting around me, and
Yeah.
you don't really think, you just try to get out of the way. You know what I mean? I've been in
Yeah.
situations where bullets was going past my ears, and I'm running towards a person getting shot at, and I don't
Yeah.
even know, and I'm only like 12 years old, and I seen people come out on my block and get shot when it happened. You know, you have some type of instincts for,
Yeah.
you would want to protect your little brother,
Yeah.
you want to protect your kids. But from the streets, I never seen two individuals saying, "Let's protect each other, let's jump on Suge, or Suge jump on me." It just, because the mindset, the reality is everybody want to be, everybody's out
I
for
know, yeah,
themselves when
'cause
some bullets start
yeah.
flying.
Yeah.
Unless it's a mother, you know what I mean? My mother, may Allah have mercy on her, took 13 bullets protecting me and my brothers. That's just a mother instinct. But the guys from the hood,
Yeah.
they start scattering. They try to go, they go the opposite way. You know what I mean?
Exactly. So, Rob, you have a question? You want to answer?
Really, some of the questions I wanted to steer towards is really just learning, getting a little more insight on you and the Outlawz, and just getting a little more personal. And so, do you
Yeah.
still keep in touch with the old crew and some of the artists that you came up with?
Yes, I do. I'm in touch with pretty much everybody, all the Outlaws, on social media. Castro is not on social media, but we talk from time to time. I'm in touch with Edie, Noble. You know, the thing is, we always have our ups and downs, but like I said, we're more like family, so we always come back together. And whatever it is, that we don't let it break us forever, and turn our backs on each other forever. We might have like brothers, we have our little differences, but we always come back together. And I think our relationship now is even more stronger, to be honest. So I'm in touch with Edie, Noble, Nutso, Storm. Some of Pac original homies from LA, like Big Country, Big Surge, Manuk. These are people, a lot of people don't know that these were people Pac was rolling with at the beginning. So the good thing about social media is it help us. I'm way in Saudi Arabia, but I'm in touch with people in New Jersey and LA, so I'm definitely in touch with them. Because like I said, we was more like family, so we definitely try to keep that, Like Jamala, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Which she's also in the documentary, Pac cousin. Like I don't celebrate Father's Day, but she just texted me the other day, "Happy Father's Day, little brother." You know what I mean? So we all in touch. We definitely
Social
keep
media
in
is a
touch.
game changer nowadays. If they had social media back then, it could be something totally different. Cool. Another question I had was, what was your most memorable concert that you performed at, or were a part
Good
of?
question, man. I think we didn't really do too many concerts until, Pac. I remember he had like a little tour with like Snoop, Dre, and them, and that ended very early because when we in the '90s, it wasn't really rap tours going on. I guess because so much violent at these stuff. Even the tour that we started, it was a few killing and shootings that they stopped it. So we didn't really experience that part with Pac. You know what I mean? We didn't really experience like performing. Besides the House of Blues is probably the only thing I really remember. You know what I mean? But other than that, we didn't really experience that side of hip hop at that particular time. It wasn't really world tours back then. It wasn't really, you know what I mean? We wasn't really traveling around the world and stuff like that. I remember when Pac went to Italy, we was like, wow. You know what I mean? He went there to do some modeling for Versace or one of them. But we didn't really start traveling until after Pac died and started doing, shows with the Outlawz and stuff like that.
How was like? Can you give us a little bit of background or just like the experience you had at the House of Blues? Because that was like a legendary performance that everybody always talks about. And
Definitely, it was
shut it down there.
I remember.
How was it?
Like Pac, because he just came home, and he was actually like a guest. Like no one mentioned that he would be the performer. That he was performing, so people thought it was just Snoop and him. So when Pac came on the stage, I just remember the people went crazy. And like I said, the one thing I miss only about the music industry, but I don't really care about these concerts and stuff like that. But even during House of Blues, I remember that time we was all together. Snoop, the Dog Pound, the LBC crew, the Outlawz, Pac, Death Row at that time felt like a family. Like when we came, we felt like it was an extended family. And as you've seen, everybody was on stage, but then you've seen things slowly but surely drift away, where everybody started going to their own way and sticking to their own self. Like we'd be in the same studio where Snoop and them would be right here, and we'd be right here, and we probably won't even speak to each other. It got to that point where nobody would walk in, and I remember when Pac first came home, everybody was coming in and out of his studio session. So, you know, I miss that camaraderie. You know, as a person that, you know, coming from the hood, these are the things that I miss. But I do remember, you know, that House of Blue concert was one of those things that you see all of us was together. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And just growing up in the era where the Black Panther activity was heavy, you know, how has it influenced you and the
I
way that
don't
you
like.
live today?
I haven't. I don't have no experience with the Black Panther Party. I kind of grew up, not knowing too much about them, to be honest. You know what I mean? Until I got probably, you know, I heard about them, and I didn't really know too much about them until I met Pac. You know, and met his mother, and started to hear more about it. The things that, you know, like Gaddafi used to tell us stories that he remember. Like he'd be just woken up in the middle of the night, and he have stories where they used to make him put like peanut butter all on the walls as a kid, and he didn't know why. And then they just leave the house and run, and that's because of fingerprints. They didn't want the FBI to know who was in his house. So I remember them telling me these type of stories, and I was like, wow, this is, you know, they lived it. As kids, like Pac and Yak and Gaddafi and them, they actually experienced these things. You know what I mean? When they was looking for Gaddafi's father and stuff. So when I started hearing these type of stories, it started making me become more curious about them. And, you know, I remember they telling me how, you know, because I used to think Black Panther Party was just probably a black nationalist movement. But then when they told me, no, it was white people, and it was Japanese people, it was Chinese people, it was, you know what I mean? So it let me know that it was a movement that was just trying to better the societies of their people in general, everyone. So when I started hearing that, it made me more like, wow, I had to have respect for them, because they really was trying to clean up the neighborhoods. You know, the Black Panther Party was walking around armed. They was protecting black people against police, and they had to change the whole law of America. The whole, you know, they had to mess up with some laws that if the police had to go put charges on people from the Black Panther Party, and then I believe the FBI, they made a new law that if you have a case against you or you have a charge, you cannot be, if you're a felon, you cannot own a weapon. So that's the way they was able to disarm the Black Panther Party, because they was like, these people know the law, they know the rights, they walking around with guns not to intimidate people but to protect their people, and I believe it was an incident with P. Newton, what's his name, one of the founders of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, when they was in Oakland and the police pulled up on them when they was walking around legally with guns. It was the law, and the police said, drop your weapons, and they said, no, you drop your weapons. And they said that incident where they was like, no, we can't have this. We can't have black people knowing the law, implementing the law. We got to change it. So that's when they start disarming them by putting, you know, bogus charges on some of them, and that's how they really did it. You know what I mean? So when I knew what they stood for, it was all positive. You know, they was giving free breakfast meals. They was feeding people, getting people off of drugs. When the Black Panther Party moved out, that's when drugs really started to really flourish in the neighborhoods. That's when gangs started coming, like Bloods and Crips and other. Even they started off trying to be positive and, you know, help the communities. But eventually, if you don't have no elders with it, that mindset, eventually turned out to where to the way it is today, unfortunately.
And I think Pac kind of alluded to that, right? He's saying
Pretty
you
good.
guys are supposed to teach us, and you guys didn't teach us, right? I think he kind of meant
Yeah,
he
yeah,
called out the
'cause if you
elders
got
in
no-
that.
You don't got no elders, and I think that's the problem with a lot of these youngsters now. They don't respect their OGs. You know what I mean? Like when I went from the East Coast to the West Coast, it was structured. Like that's the first time I seen, like, you got the OGs and you got the little homies and you got everybody falling in line. I don't know about it now. Maybe it changed now. You know what I mean? But they had some type of structure. You know what I mean? And Pac was trying to do that with the Thug Life Code, that he was working with the Black Panther Party, trying to figure a way to get the streets to stop selling drugs, stop doing drive-bys, you know, stop doing, like, you know, stop killing people, stop shooting randomly. Like he wanted to push that message out, and but you know what I mean? It's, you know, I believe when drugs infiltrated the hood, and money got involved, and people that was so poor was able to wake up, that, you know, you have families that probably didn't see $1,000, you know, they lifetime, and now they making that every 3 hours. You understand? and then guns came involved, and that's when the problem started.
Man, I feel like this is the first time when I watched this Dear Mama where I was like, wow, we have two different worlds in this country, and this is like a full-on police state. And it was infuriating. I couldn't imagine actually
Yeah.
living through that. But I think it's important
Yeah.
that they get the message out. It's really cool to
Yeah,
hear
and
your,
that's
your
good.
take
Like
on it.
for
So I
example,
appreciate
you're a
that.
white
But
American, and you was
go
able
ahead.
to see from that documentary the things that that we face in Black America. You understand? A lot of people didn't understand that. Like, and
Yeah.
growing up, you feel like you living in a police state because you can just be in the corner. I remember just hanging on the corner, and the police will come. What y'all doing on the corner? Even though it was some illegal activities that's happening on the corner or around in our neighborhood, but that doesn't mean everybody who we hanging out to have some fresh air, and you can't even hang out without the police jumping out, smacking you,
Yep.
or throwing you
Yeah.
against the wall. I grew up in that environment, so when you grew up like that, it's pretty much a police state. You know what I mean? Like you got to answer whenever they tell you to, or
It is, yeah.
you can't even just walk down the street innocently with your friend without being harassed. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Last question I had was, what was your hardest change?
Sorry, say it again. Repeat the question.
I was gonna say, what was the hardest change that you had to go through when it came to
The
converting
hardest
to
change that I
religion?
had to go through when I converted to Islam, I believe, to stop drinking. I had a problem with drinking, man. So that was very difficult for me, to give that up because you can't drink alcohol in Islam. I really wasn't a smoker, um, weed and stuff like that. I really, I tried weed in L.A. That weed, the chronic, that I retired. Like I was like, man, I can't smoke this stuff coming from Jersey, and then I was a drinker, So that was one of the hardest things for me to give up was the alcohol. You know what I mean? But eventually I was able to do it, and it's been over 21 years since I drunk. Thank God, alhamdulillah.
Yeah,
It ain't easy. It ain't
not
easy.
easy,
A lot of
man.
stuff ain't
Not
easy in
easy.
life. You know what I mean? Of course, there's other things. I had to change my mindset. I had to, certain friends I couldn't be around anymore, and sometimes that just come with age. You understand? So, certain things that
Yeah.
I had to really change my mindset because, and that came with having kids. That came with age. So you got to grow. You know what I mean? You got to grow. Like I said, I think I just got mature last year.
So, just from the stuff that you said you watched so far in the documentary, is there something that stands out that maybe that you like to highlight, or maybe even give more context to that you saw, maybe, or just that really spoke to you that you liked seeing
I
shown
really
that
liked.
way?
Or set the record
I
straight.
really
Or set
liked
the
how
record
we
straight,
highlight
awesome.
the relationship that Pac had with his mother. I think that was beautiful. You know what I mean? Because I seen that myself, and other people probably didn't see that. But I always loved the fact how he was very close with his mother. He loved his mother, and the documentary showed actually a lot of stuff that he really got and learned was really from his mother. You know what I mean? She installed a lot of things in him in a positive way that his personality, everything. Like I always tell people, it was his mother. That warrior side of him, that mentality side of him, that the smartness. He's a high school dropout, but all of that thing was his mother encouraging him to read. Her love for books. She was telling Pac that she instilled it in him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I got a question on that too. The documentary it really alluded a lot to Pac having a lot of opportunities to go a
Yes.
more political route. Um, and talk to me about that. Do you wish he would have, or do you think you're glad
I
he went the
think
route he did? How do you think it
I
would have
think
turned out if he
everything is
didn't go
written for him.
political?
I think if it was, what I mean, in life, I believe everything that we do, our past is written for us. You know what I mean? I think if he would went political, you got to understand that time of the Black Panther Party was pretty much over. You know what I mean? It was over. So, it's not really much you can do. Like I have an uncle from a Puerto Rican side. I remember years ago I saw him dressed up with a Black Panther, and I was joking with him. I said, "Now you want to be a Black Panther? There's no more enemies." You know what I mean? So I was just joking with him, but it's over. You know what I mean? So I think he probably would have had a hard time not really being able to do what he wanted to do or put that message out. Pac was a poet. He was good with his words. He was good with his poetry. And I think even if, like I said, I don't listen to music, but even if we remove every musical instrument from his songs, at the end of the day, it's poetry. 90% of them had a message. You know what I mean? So I think to see him. But you know what's crazy? I remember he did say before he passed away, like he was thinking about getting into politics. And I don't know exactly which way or how, but I was shocked to say, wow, you're gonna get into politics, because you know back then for us we like politics. We don't really know too much about politics other than what CNN tell us what politics is. So to him say he was gonna get into politics, I never forgot that, because I was surprised to even hear something like that. I didn't even think people like us, you know what I mean, belong in politics or can get into politics. So he was thinking like that, and he was only 25 years old. Later on, it blew my mind, you know what I mean, when I was like, wow, Pac was thinking about getting into politics. What, you know what I mean?
Man, how different the world could have been.
What another question I had, just because I thought it was a pretty like emotional scene in general, and you were there around him at the time at Jasmine Guy's house, right after the shooting when he was up there recovering. And then you saw, like, I know you saw the clip, and I remember you mentioned that you didn't, you never heard that part of it, or saw whatever he wrote on his head. I think it was "fuck the world," and he had a shotgun, and he was talking about, I'm not going to jail. Let's drive up north out to the woods. And essentially possibly taking his life. Like, how did that scene hit you? Hearing that story?
I can't recall, and I can't say that it's not true, because around these times, majority of my time I was in, my mindset was off, you know what I mean? We was always drinking, we was always, far away from reality. So I cannot say that didn't happen. I can't say that didn't happen, but we definitely was at his house. I remember being at Jasmine Guy house. He was at his lowest. He was at his lowest, and it was hard. It was hard to see him that way, because he barely can move. He was just at his lowest. You was having people bringing messages to him saying this person said that. So, but that sound like Pac. When Glow said that in the documentary, it definitely sounded like something Pac would say. So, I just don't remember it.
Do you remember much about his relationship with his dad coming back in? Because I think that's about the time. I think he said that he mentioned he started visiting him at Jasmine's house,
Yes.
right? Or first at the hospital, then at Jasmine. Do you remember any interactions with him, or did you have any interactions
the interaction
with
was
him
limited,
at all?
like, hey, how are you? Hi, stuff like that. Pac father came around when he got shot. He came around. Jasmine Guy house. We all was in the same vicinity, in the room, in the house together. He used to visit Pac a lot, and when Pac was in jail, but when Pac left jail and came to death row, the connection stopped. I don't know why. You know what I mean? He just stopped talking about his father. He didn't come around anymore up until he was shot again in Las Vegas. So it was that gap period for them 11 months. His father wasn't around again, and I don't know why. You know what I mean? I don't know if Pac was just too busy, wasn't calling him around, but but he was around when he was shot, and he was coming to visit him in prison. But when he came home, that relationship stopped. From what I seen, he didn't come around anymore. He wasn't in LA with us. The next time we saw him was when Pac was in a hospital in Vegas.
Yeah. And then I guess going into just Vegas real quick, just touching base on that. In the documentary, they alluded to, on the flight back, that Pac didn't want to go to the fight, right? The Tyson fight, and that Suge was wanting him to come and convincing him to come, and he went there. Do you? I know you weren't at the fight, but do you remember or hearing anything about Pac not wanting
I remember
to
Pac,
go to the fight?
I can't clearly recall, but I do remember there was an incident with one of his family members that happened in Atlanta, and Pac was furious. I don't want to really go into details, but Pac was like, man, I'm going straight to Atlanta. I'm going to handle this dude. Like, he was mad. You know what I mean? And I believe that's probably why he thought he didn't want to go. Well, I thought he didn't want to go to Vegas. I never heard him say it, but other than he's going there to handle that. But eventually he went to Vegas, and but I never heard it out of him.
Do you think, like? Yeah, do you think, like you said, he kind of had some anger towards the stuff that's going on in Atlanta, then going to see Tyson fight, and then being told, or I think the gentleman Orlando was there and what he did. Do you think that kind of all hyped it up?
Probably. These boxing matches, especially when you watch these boxing matches, you just be ready to fight. Yeah. Everybody start thinking they Tyson. You know what I mean? It just pumped you up. So that might have played a role in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That might have played a role in it.
So yeah, and then just curious as to the because Tupac, I know he was like the like just out in L.A. and stuff, like the Bloods and the Crips all seemed like they loved him and respected him,
Yes.
right? He had love from both sides. What was it about this group though that was going after it's like the gentleman Orlando? He
Yes.
snatched the death row chains. What was
You know,
behind that? Like
you know they had
that group doing
blood.
that stuff.
That neighborhood and Suge neighborhood, they always had bad blood. They was rivals from the, Compton days. So the rumor was that Puff Daddy and them was going to pay some money to snatch that chain. Like, and when people say that chain only was worth a couple hundred, that's false because the death row chains that they was wearing was real diamond, like iced out chains. You know what I mean? So the incident was where they was in a mall and they tried to snatch the chain from Trey and them, and they fought back, got the chain back. Um, so when they heard Trey telling his homies that, Pac, from what we know, Trey was telling his homies that, not Pac, you know what I mean? And Trey told me that, out of his own mouth. Like, and it makes sense. Like, why would he go to Pac when he had all his homies there? They were security. But Pac overheard it, and that's when he took off. Because Pac was loyal. So Pac looking at it like, if it's true that Puffy was trying to pay him to snatch that death row chain, then I'm already in this beef. Then it's because I'm on death row now. So, let me go do what I had to do.
Okay. Yeah. That. You guys any more questions on that? Or? So I guess just in general, man, is there any well, actually, hold on, real quick, we're just gonna
Yes.
give you some random shot questions here now, just just to answer them. So one thing is, I was always curious because he got to work with Dre, right? Was there any other like unreleased songs that he worked with Dr. Dre that that are out there maybe or that never got released?
So basically, I don't remember Pac working with Dre too much. When we came around, I, I barely seen Dre in the studio. Um, Maybe once or twice. Barely interacted with Dre. I just remember the only time I interacted with Dre 2 times, and Pac probably interacted with him. Of course, he knew him before he went to Death Row, but as far as music, I think he haven't done any other songs with Dre other than what he done, and Dre wasn't around. You know what I mean? It got to a point where Dre was like, Dre was smart, and I don't blame him. He's like, man, I don't got time for this stuff. Like, people was getting beat up in the studio, slapped around, everybody drunk, guns. Dre started recording at his house, and Pac not gonna go over there because Pac wanted to be in the studio. But the only time I remember Dre wanting to work with Pac is when we was on the California Love set, and he was like, man, y'all should let me do that record, talking about Hit 'Em Up. He was like, y'all should let me let me do the beat on Hit 'Em Up, because he wanted to be part of it. Because Dre know a hit when he hear one. And then the second time we ever saw Dre is after Pac died, and we was at some gathering, me, myself, and Edie and us, and he was like, man, can y'all imagine if I mess with you guys? Imagine if Dre start doing an album on the Outlawz, and he gave the number, and he's like, this is the number to the studio. I remember calling it, and he never answered. He never called back, because Dre is a very clever person. Like, Dre is the type of person, he don't want no drama, and I don't blame him. So he the type of person he would pick peace over money. So he might say, Pac just died a couple years ago, and me producing an album on the Outlawz, Dre, we know that would have been bananas. But Dre was like, but is these guys' mentality ready? They still beating up people, they still wild. He don't have time for that, you know what I mean? And I think because of the whole Death Row environment, it stopped Dre from continuing to doing more songs with Pac, because he didn't want to be around that type of stuff. And if now you look at it, he was a smart man. Can't blame him.
And then, do you have like a story or two that you haven't shared about Tupac that would be interesting or something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I'm really trying to think, man. Like, sometimes they just come randomly and just hit me, and a lot of people just it's a side of Pac that people don't know that we know is just like, just chilling with him. That side of him, just always in his crib and always, I think he loved to have family around him. He was an individual that, you know what I mean? What story can I say, man? Like, y'all gotta ask me some questions and maybe something will hit my mind.
Well, okay. Well, I guess just curious in general, like Jada Pinkett Smith talks about her relationship with Pac a lot and how deep it was, and that. Were you ever around that? Did you ever see that, like her around and stuff? I think it was Kirkland came out, kind of calling BS on it on an interview. I think it might have been with Art of Dialogue, that it was.
Pac loved it, hands down. You know what I mean? You know, I don't. You gotta understand. A lot of people used to come around, and I don't remember or really recall. She definitely was around when he passed away. He was around her, of course, because we seen pictures. He was around her in L.A. You know, the first time that, like when I first met Pac, I moved to Atlanta, and there was a movie that Jada Pinkett, her first movie ever, was with one of the Wayans brothers and someone else. And I remember Pac made us. He took us to the movie theater in Atlanta to watch that movie that Jada Pinkett was in. And I was wondering, like, why is this guy so into this movie like that? You know what I mean? Then later on, I found out he knew her. He definitely, you know, I don't think, you know, I don't agree with whoever said it was BS. I agree that they relationship was, I don't think it was nothing more than out of respect, and like they really truly cared for each other. Like Pac really cared about her. You know what I mean? I remember one time Pac told us that, and he was kind of upset, you know, about it when she first got with Will Smith. Pac was like, man, can you believe Jada gonna tell me Pac don't beat up Will Smith, don't do nothing to Will Smith because I'm dating him now, and it hurt Pac for that. He's like, you know, what is this? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's the only time I heard from my ears him say something about Jada Pinkett, you know. Did I turn it off? Oh, no, we good.
And then another question I had just in general was your guys' thoughts after, like, after, Pac passed away and a few years later you get, people coming out like it's like Ja Rule, right? And, he's been credited where he tried to copy a little bit of Tupac's style, kind of the way he dressed and kind of the way he rapped. I think there's a story that Suge met him and got emotional when he met Ja Rule because he reminded him so much of Pac. But what was your guys' feeling seeing like a Ja Rule come out and kind of go with that, trying to kind of imitate a little bit here? Like, how did you guys as like the Outlawz feel about that?
You know, I met Ja Rule one time at the Roscoe's in L.A. and he was, and this one he was at the height of his career. He showed us a lot of love. I think for us, we look at it like people showing their respect. Back then, I was looking at it like they really showing their respect for Pac, and he fathered a movement where, you know what I mean, so I didn't get upset or nothing like that. It was just one of them things. I was actually shocked to be, because after he passed away, you've seen so many people taking something from him and stuff like that. So I was shocked to show, but I always looked at it as a way of respect. They were showing their respect, that's all.
All right, and then just I guess lastly here to really wrap it up, was there any like collabs he was about to do or anything that like not many people know that he would have collabed with this artist or that was coming out or anything interesting like that?
I think he definitely did some collabs that never came out. And I wonder, like, for example, Big Daddy Kane. A lot of people don't know he did a song with Big Daddy Kane.
Oh, wow.
That I heard. And also Grandmaster Flash. What's the dude name? The old school dude from Melly Mel. He did a song with Melly Mel. Like, because he wanted to pay respect to the people that, was there that was there before him. So he did these songs with him. You know what I mean? I remember growing up because, Big Daddy Kane and them was, these was the legends. So I'm in the studio in Death Row and Big Daddy Kane was there. Pac wasn't a legend to me because we with him every day. That's just like the homie. Yeah. Everybody else, like, you walk in the mall and they like, wow, what? But for us, we like, oh, this Pac, this is, we know him because he never really let the fame get to his head. But when you were saying people like Big Daddy Kane and them, he was like, wow. But all of these people was like, wow to Pac. You know what I mean? So he, so I remember him definitely doing them songs with these legends.
Wow. I think I have one last question, just to wrap it up.
Yep.
Truly to wrap it up this time, I promise. Just, is there anything that, like a message you want to get out or things you want to set straight or share things you're working on or anything like that while we have you?
I just, you know what I mean? I'm here in Saudi Arabia. I'm happy to be on your platform, giving me the opportunity, to explain a little bit about what we went through in the music industry and be able to explain, things with Pac and things with the Outlawz, my life now, as a Muslim in Saudi Arabia. I always tell the people that, especially when I speak about these certain things, it's not to glorify it, but it's to try to show the people a side of it that they didn't know, you know what I mean? Or try to even advise the people not to make the same mistakes that we made. and you know, so life is what it is. You go through these things and you got to learn from your mistakes. At least we try to learn from our mistakes and try to come out better. You understand? So I always try to just give that advice to the people. You know, the music industry, when the youngsters hit me up and say, can you give me the chance to be in the music industry? I don't listen to music anymore. And I always tell people, man, stay away from the music industry if you can. You understand? It's one of these things like, look how many of these young rappers are getting killed.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Look at these young rappers are getting killed. I think you have another chance. You know, all fast money is not always good money.
Yep.
You understand? So I always try to tell a youngster, man, go get an education, go start a business, but you don't always, you know, because we glamorize. We made a mistake where we put that lifestyle as rappers. We made it so beautiful on the television. But the people don't know behind the scenes that come with it. You know, we do a 2-3 minute video, so of course we gotta fool you with these videos and the vision and things like that. But you don't know the other side of it. You know what I mean? You don't know how many people getting their life cut down at a young age because of this music industry, because it doesn't mix with the streets. Nowadays these rappers talking all that gangster stuff, and then you got real people on the street that's going to try you.
Yeah.
Yep.
You understand? So I always tell people most likely stay away from it, because if you coming from the inner city of the hood, 9 out of 10 chances the record label only going to sign you when you're talking gangster stuff. And now you got real people on the street you're going to have to prove that to them when you run into them. So is it worth it?
Yeah.
To me, it's not. You know what I mean?
So just just another thing we wanted to ask you too, just because we seen that you're on your Instagram stuff, that you're actually pretty cool with the rapper's Loon, right? From Bad Boy too, right? So how'd that come about? And then like, what's your relationship?
Yeah, so shout out to Loon, man. Loon Amir, that's a good brother. You know, the first time that I ever met Loon, I was in New York or Atlanta, one of these places years ago, before I was Muslim. And we was at a club, and I remember it probably was like 50, 60 of us that left the club before me, the Outlawz and people from Jersey and everything. And I walked out by myself later, a few minutes behind them, a few minutes late after. And I seen Loon there. And he's like, what's up, bro? Like, real respectful. I was like, what's up, bro? And I was like, you that bad boy dude, right? And I was like, you that bad boy dude? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, I just shook his hand. And I remember going around the corner to the Outlawz like, man, what happened? Why didn't we get this dude? We ran into one of them. But it was something about him that he was so respectful, you know what I mean? I just had to shake his hand and give him love. And years later, after I became Muslim, I was Muslim for a few years already, I get a phone call from one of the Moroccan brothers from New York. It's like, look, guess who I'm with? You would never believe who just became Muslim. Let me put him on the phone, and it was Loon. So ever since that, man, we just been together. You know what I mean? I was in touch with him, you know, a few times while he was locked up. He was here in Saudi Arabia with us not too long ago. Good brother. Shout out to Loon, Amir, and peace, man, and appreciate you guys for having me on your show. Until next time, peace out. We out.